All right. Hello and welcome to this episode where we're going to continue our discussion on OCD and anxiety recovery. So, and in this episode, I want to talk about the idea of recovery being a present moment decision. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And so, when we're talking about recovery, right? I think a lot of the just conceptions and misconceptions, I should say, people's mind really holds them back on this particular journey when it comes to OCD and anxiety. By the way, before we dive in, really would appreciate your support by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment or review for the show, because it helps our algorithm. So please help us out with that. And then also, if you're looking for help, please check out the notes below, as there's some links to some resources, as well as you can also visit restoredminds.com for additional support. We have various ways to support you on this journey and help you on this journey to achieve the results you want to achieve. So when it comes to looking at recovery, a lot of people look at it as this place they're going to get to in the future. And before you watch this or go through this episode, please check out the episode right before this, because it's going to build on each other. But in the last episode, I talked about how the more and more you pursue recovery as an emotional state, the paradox is the more it's going to elude you, because your goal is going to be achieving an emotional state. And the paradox is you're often going to engage in behaviors that are going to reinforce the anxiety loop, right? And when we look at recovery as a present moment decision, that I think really begins to change the game on this journey. Now, some of you might be listening to that and be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Because if the recovery was a present moment decision, I would choose to feel better right now. And still going off what I was talking about in the last video, recovery is not about achieving a certain feeling state. Because as humans, we have different emotional states, different emotional frequencies, I would even go to argue, that we experience. And that's part of life, is like we're going to experience different emotional states. The problem is when we try not to experience certain emotional states, oftentimes those emotional states tend to stay around until we actually experience them and navigate them in a healthy way. So, I mean, this is, think about the person who suffers a great loss in life and experiences grief, and to not encounter that grief, they use some kind of substance to mitigate the pain, and they can stay on that substance for decades, right? Decades, all with the intention of not feeling the pain, right? When really the healthy way through that would be to sit with the grief, because the grief is a natural response to that, natural emotional state. Likewise, stress and anxiety is a natural byproduct of a lot of the behavioral practices that we engage in, especially in our society right now. I mean, if you're on your phone all the time, and I was guilty of it this morning, I mean, I just really transparent, right? Like, I by no means am perfect. Generally speaking, I try to have, some just silence in the morning, right? Just practice some quiet time, all that. I found myself hopping on my phone, checking email, like almost, just a few minutes after I got up. That was a poor practice today, right? And, when it comes to looking at recovery, right? What recovery is not being in the loop, right? It's not being in the loop. So as thoughts and feelings come up and we engage in healthy behaviors and healthy responses to them, they surface and they pass, right? And when it comes to thinking that recovery is I only want to feel the way I want to feel, the problem with that, again, like I talked about in the last video, is that we are going to end up engaging in behaviors that are going to keep us in the loop. But if we look at recovery as a present moment decision, the question becomes, even if you feel anxious, or if you feel depressed, or if you feel, like an internal disturbance right now, what you need to ask yourself is saying, hey, what have I been practicing in the past that has led to this present experience right now? And if I have been practicing something, so what mental behaviors, what physical behaviors, right? Have I been, again, avoiding emotion? Have I been burying stuff? Have I not been, expressing things in a healthy way? Whatever it is, right? Like, you really have to just look at yourself and say, like, what have I been doing that has presented this specific situation in the present moment right now? And realizing that your present experience is a direct result of your past decisions. Therefore, if you don't like your present, what you have to start doing is actually changing your decisions right now, your behaviors right now, which will then in turn create a more balanced and more healthy future situation. I mean, it's the same exact thing with physical health. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, not really liking what I'm seeing here, like, especially when it comes to just like, BMI and stuff like that. Well, you can get angry about it. You can blame people about it, right? Or you can say, hey, look, like, clearly I've been making some poor decisions. Good news is that when we take it from that approach, we can say, okay, well, guess what? I can start making some good decisions like right now. And those good decisions, if I consistently make them, will produce a better result in the future, and relatively the near future too, if we're really consistent. In many ways, it's the same thing with our mental and emotional health, right? It's like, what have I been doing? Am I binging on energy drinks, right? Staying up late, right? How's my sleep hygiene, right? Am I on the screen, 16 out of 24 hours a day? Is there a screen in front of my face? Okay. Am I having good emotional, like, connection with people, right? Or am I isolating myself? Is my only connection, behind screen time with someone? Or am I really getting in front of people, embracing my loved ones? Am I putting my phone aside, my screens aside, and am I having, like, direct, authentic connection? There's good questions to ask. Am I getting outside? Am I working out? Am I exercising? Am I doing these things, right? I mean, like, these are little things, but just starting to look at those patterns, like, what do you do when you get off work, right? With the time change now, right? I mean, well, where I am in California anyway, it's like, it gets dark around like 5. And so I was just talking about this with my family this weekend. I was just like, hey, it's very important, for me, that I'm going to start on my lunch making sure I get a bit of a walk in, so I'm getting some sun every day, because it's real easy for me to show up at the office in the morning, and when I leave, it to be dark. And if I'm not careful, if I'm not taking care of myself, I could just be walking around, like, essentially never contact sun almost, and it's like, so these things, right? And again, I obviously, we're talking about deeper stuff here with compulsions and safety behaviors and all that. Those are things that we really need to pay attention to. But instead of looking at recovery in this futuristic mindset of I'm going to get there one day, look at it as something that I can start practicing now. And if I practice it now enough, eventually it will become that reality. Right? But it's a practice. It's a practice, and that mentality should empower you to say, hey, I choose recovery today. I might not feel it today. That's okay. Just in the same way, someone who's very physically unhealthy may say, hey, I don't feel physically healthy right now. Right? It's not about deceiving yourself and saying I'm physically healthy, even though you're, X amount of pounds overweight and stuff like this, right? It's like, no, it's not like acting in self-deception. Same way with mental and physical. It's like, I'm not telling you to say like, no, I'm healthy. I'm just going to deny what I'm actually experiencing. No, that is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is saying, hey, even though this present reality is here, I'm going to choose health. I'm going to choose recovery. I'm going to choose to behave in this specific way that's going to produce this result one day, you know? And so especially with the mental behaviors, right? It's like I'm going to choose to practice this with the knowledge that my practice will produce results. And so if you've been practicing OCD and you've been practicing doing behaviors that are spinning this loop and you're experiencing being stuck in the loop right now, it's because you've been engaging in behaviors. And you have to acknowledge that. Because if you decide to look anywhere else and say, okay, well, this is everyone else's fault, you're not going to make change. And therefore, you're not going to see any change in your life. Because, and so really understanding like, what decision am I making right now? And anchoring into that and deciding that the only place recovery is ever going to exist is right now. And therefore, I have the decision that I have to make right now. And I'm going to decide to engage in the behaviors that are going to, at some point, create that futuristic reality that I want. But those choices are right now. So hope that makes sense. Hope that was helpful. And if you're looking for help on this journey again, please check out the notes in the resources, or the resources in the notes. And then also, head over to restoredminds.com. And, we have several resources to help you there as well. So thank you for taking the time to hang out today. Wish you guys a great day, and I will talk to you soon.